we're here with Sue and we're here with Esther. Esther, for those who may not know who you are, you've been part of our first cohort, both of you guys in Chicago, when we first started this cohort. Can you share with the audience a little bit what you do, Esther?
In short, I teach math at a high school.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been a teacher for?
This is my 8th year teaching.
Got it. So, have you always lived in Chicago? Where's home been for you?
I grew up in the suburbs, but and I taught for 3 years in the north suburbs, and then I now teach in the city for 5 years.
Yeah. Got it. When you were teaching in the suburbs, usually it's people in the city go to the suburbs to teach. What made you come back to the city?
Yeah, I guess it was part of feeling like, as a Christian, my goal in life is not to be comfortable. It's not to have security. My goal in life is to follow God wherever he calls. And I felt strongly that God was asking me to move to the city and work with populations that are often underserved.
Yeah. Sue, I'm going to talk with you. When you first joined the cohort, you were in the business world, you were doing HR, and now you're not doing that. Talk a little bit about that. What are you doing right now?
Right now, I'm a pastry cook at the Langham Hotel in Chicago.
What made you go from HR to what you're doing in terms of baking?
Well, HR was growing up in an Asian American background. It wasn't really encouraged to go into the service industry. Yeah. So I kind of went the route of business and human resources. So it was something that I just felt secure in financially in doing. But after I took some classes and just really opened my eyes up to some passions that I had when I was younger. Yeah. That's kind of where I ended up. I went to pastry school and traveled around a little bit to get.
Because you were in Paris?
Yes, I was for a few months interning over there. And when I came back, I worked at a bakery over the holiday season, and now I'm at Bellingham.
Got it. Good. Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit and talk. All of you guys have had to make major decisions. You moving, you changing careers as well too. Both of you guys talked about that you had to be in touch with your passion. You felt like God was calling you. Soon, let me turn to you. What was that? Talk through a little bit in terms of your discernment. How did you make that discernment? How did you process through that? And you reflected also upon past passions too, right?
Right. It was definitely one of the biggest challenges when I was making that decision was just the uncertainty of it. But the whole process was even just going from a more financially secure job and then transitioning to a career where I feel passion in it. But I guess the whole process was difficult though, because I just didn't know where God would lead me in this path. But looking back, I feel like God was really paving the way in my career, and also even providing opportunities for my husband Henny to pick up a couple extra things so that we could survive on one salary because I wasn't working for about a year and a half because of school and different internships.
And what about yourself, Ed? I mean, when you made that decision, did you just sit there one day and sit there, wow, I need to go in the city? What was that decision like? How did you get that burden to work in the city?
Yeah, I think God really kind of every year started adding this dissatisfaction with where I was. So by the 3rd year, I was like, I can't stay here anymore. So I think it was God's pushing of this isn't where you want to be. But then also a professor happened to be sitting next to a principal who happened to overhear her talk about her program. That professor was my professor. She told me about this job over in the city, and it brought me to Englewood, which is where I worked for a while. And it brought me to live in Bridgeport. And then that was the first time that I had started to go back to church because I went to Bridgeport. But when I was in the suburbs, I didn't go to church for 3 years. So I think that God was doing a lot of things kind of with the dissatisfaction, but also with like the pulling of like,
Yeah.
this is where you're going to be.
Correct. Now, Sue, let me ask you. I mean, you both were. I'm going to start with Sue. Is Resource Global? You were part of our first cohort, and I asked you to be part of it. When we were just starting, we didn't know what we were doing back at that time. What do you remember about that time? I mean,
It was a really positive experience for me. I remember most of us being in similar life stages and all just having the same goal of just wanting to be a light in our respective workplaces and our different cities. But I really had a positive experience with my mentorship group. Emily Geyer and Megan were in my mentorship group, and even just talking with them, just sharing about different things that I was going through in my life and hearing about their background and their stories were it was really good for me at that time in my life. So even just being associated with a diverse group of Christians who also just want to use their giftings and passions to further God's kingdom, it was really motivating and energizing for me at that point.
Yeah, I really loved going through Resource Global. I grew so much because of it. I think that there are like two big instances that I remember the most. One was with Catherine Leary.
Yeah, Larry Allstorff. Yep.
Allstorff. I had just been thinking about turning this math group that I had started and just being like, you know, I wanted to have a math group that was focused on social justice and equity and race in mathematics education, but it was like slowly dying and it was all on my shoulders. And I was like, during Resource Global, I was like, I think I just want to give up now. In my head, I was thinking that. And then Catherine Leary was talking, and she had said she gave this talk about thorns and thistles. And it was the first time I had met anyone like her. And that was kind of like, for me, like, wow, I didn't even know that this kind of person was possible, that like integrated their work so seamlessly with their faith. And when she started talking about like how, you know, part of work is the thorns and thistles, and that's the things that you have to go through. Not everything is meant to be easy. Not everything you love is going to be easy. And as I was thinking about that, I decided, you know what, instead of quitting, I'm going to push forward. And so, like, since then, that was 2 years ago, but like now we are a nonprofit.
Really?
And,
Okay.
And now we have a leadership team where before it was just me by myself.
Really?
And so I think from that moment, that was a turning point for me for my organization. So I found Resource Global to be like a life changer for me.
Yeah. As a baker, what is your hope? What's your dreams that you're going to accomplish as a baker for the gospel and to really make an impact in this world?
Like I said before, I just really want to make an impact specifically in the culinary field because this is my passion. I see God every day in what I do, and to me it seems kind of weird, but it's amazing to me to see just ingredients as simple as flour, water, yeast, salt. You just mix it up. They're very humble ingredients, and you bake it off, and it just turns into this beautiful, to me, it's beautiful loaf of bread and something that can nourish. And, you know, bread is life. And I think food just brings people together. And I think it's a way that in that industry, we can make an impact just by bringing people together and even just sharing a meal together. I hope that further in the future I can grow in my career and hopefully that be a bigger impact in that industry.
Esther, what's your hope as a math teacher working in this way south side of Chicago? What's your hope as a teacher and the impact that you have for the gospel as a math teacher in your school?
I guess maybe my answer will be a little surprising. I think that I came in with this idealistic notion that I was going to be part of making this giant change in mathematics education to eradicate injustice. Being in my 8th year teaching, I'm realizing that it's not quite so simple. I think And I've been running my head into a lot of walls lately. And I think the thing that God has been really placing on my heart is this phrase of just being. That like my hope is not in my own abilities, because I've seen where that goes, and in a lot of ways it doesn't get me that far. And I think God has been asking me to put my hope in Him, and that God's going to make a way, even though I can't see a way. And so my hope is actually for myself, and it's just to keep following, to keep moving in wherever God asks me to go, even if it doesn't make sense. I know that I should have kind of this response of like, a beautiful education, students are empowered, and I don't know, these very flowery language, but I can't say that that's my true hope.